Dan. I'm George. Welcome to our first workshop of the day. Oh, the places you'll go. You guys remember Dr. Seuss, right? Good old Dr. Seuss. So it's not going to be exactly the same. We won't have, bless you, a little bit different structure of the day versus the Dr. Seuss book. Dan, would you like to walk us through?
Great. So we have, today we're going to start with a little provocative opening.
Who remembers this one?
A couple years ago, there's this meme going around online with this dress. And the question was, what color is this dress? Who sees blue and black? Oh, wow. Obviously. Okay. Who sees something else, white and gold? Great. And for the folks who see white and gold, can you see blue and black? Not at all. Okay. And I'll tell you, for me, I see black and blue, and I cannot see white and gold at all. So when we're planning for innovation, what happens a lot is we each might use similar words. We might all say innovation. We might all say breakthrough or disrupt. But if we haven't checked in, yeah, I know, right? You can't see the other side. If you haven't checked in with the rest of your team and figured out what do we actually mean when we say innovation and when we talk about our targets, then one of us might be talking black and blue and the other white and gold. So we need to align with our teams and figure out what do we mean by innovation and how do we plan for it. So as we take you through the Bright Idea innovation journey, we can plan for innovation at any level, whether you're getting kicked off and running programs within your first few years, or you're developing an innovation lab, going ecosystem-wide and pulling in external partners, or using the Bright Idea Innovation Cloud to run company-wide transformation. Any part of this journey, you can use the same 9 components of innovation business planning that we're going to walk you through, okay? We always need to align with stakeholders. We always need to figure out what our goals are. We always need a roadmap to get there, okay? That's 3 of the 9. We'll get through them all by the end of the hour. Throughout this hour, our goal is to help you see a realistic path toward planning for innovation. In an hour, we can't make your entire innovation business plan, okay? We run 2-day workshops to do that. That's 16 hours, and it takes a couple weeks of preparation and a few weeks of debrief and synthesis afterward. So really making an innovation plan is about a 2-month effort if you're efficient.
Definitely far more than the hour.
So in the hour, we want you to have confidence that there are 9 clear components that you need to create, and that there's at least a clear pathway to start to get there, okay?
All right, so our workshop will unfold in 4 phases. We are going to utilize a little bit of the hustle referenced yesterday, so it's going to be fast-moving at times. First phase, as Dan mentioned, he's going to walk us through the 9 components. So you're seeing in front of yourselves, let's click, Dan, click that button. There you are. So what you see in front of you, the scorecard, as Dan is walking through the 9 components, one at a time, we're going to give you guys each a little bit of, basically, what is it, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, to score yourselves per each one of the components from 0 to 4. 0 being totally undefined by way of that component, 4 being fully in practice, right? So as we're going through and elaborating on each component, you give yourself a self-assessment, 0 to 4. Click. Once that is complete, and you guys will see in the room here, we have these little tabletops here. We're going to get up, and based on your lowest scoring component, or if you have more than one lowest scoring, you pick and choose, you're going to move to that section in the room. Once you get to that section, we're aiming for 3 to 5 at most people. I think we'll be fine, depending on how it spreads. But once you get to that section, you're going to work as a team in your section on that component, identifying the top 3 risks of not having that component, and then based on those risks, a 30-day action plan to mitigate, right? During this phase, we're going to be moving around, both myself, Dan, Michael. We're also going to have one more colleague joining us from the Bright Idea side. We're going to be moving section to section. We're going to be helping. We're going to be, if you have any questions, etc. But the goal is, after that action planning period, we're all going to, as groups, report out to each other. Make sense? Any questions? Shoot.
So as we think about this, are we thinking about our organization's entirety, or are we thinking about our team within the organization? There's a bit of a...
Yeah, so you want to position yourself wearing the innovation management hat within your org. Your innovation management program, your innovation management capabilities within the organization. Now, depending on the stage your program might be at, you might, of course, you're going to reference the overall organization, but you want to position yourself as our program is at this readiness level, right? Does that make sense? Cool. Any other questions? All right, again, there's going to be some hustle. It's going to be quick turnaround a couple of these sections. Dan's going to walk us through the first piece, the components here.
Great. So, like I mentioned, we have 9 components. You can start to preview them on the handouts if you'd like. We divide them into 3 sections: assess, align, and act. So, with assess, we're focusing on articulating the needs of the business, starting with checking in with our executive leaders and what they want to accomplish next year or in the 3-year plan, and making sure that our innovation team is delivering on real business needs. Because if we engage the crowd and ask for submissions on something that's not priority, then it won't be implemented because it's not priority, and then they all lose faith in our program. So at the beginning, we need to assess and figure out what is the strategic direction, and let's break it down into outcomes. So vision and mission. Most innovation teams we work with will set a vision and a mission. Vision, what you want to be, and the mission is how to get there, what the innovation team is going to do to achieve the vision. And so we just talk about the future state and what we'll bring about. Strategy is that check-in with the corporate business priorities. What are their priorities for next year or for the next 3 years? And we try to bring in an executive, possibly the CEO, for the beginning, first possibly hour of our innovation business planning workshop, and check in to see what are they trying to plan toward. Make sure that their vision is our vision. And then finally, we chart out goals and objectives to get there. So start on high-level goals, break it down to objectives to achieve those goals, and then measurable metrics and outcomes with due dates and assigned people to make it happen. So that's the quick version of what assess really means. On your handouts, you can reference the definition once again in its top row. And what we're going to do now is take a few minutes and scorecard yourself. So for the top row, circle these numbers based on where you think your organization is in innovation maturity, just for this top row. So 0 means you haven't defined your vision yet, you haven't defined strategy, or you haven't defined goals and objectives. 4 is you figured it out and implemented it.
The clock has started.
Okay? So take 3 minutes to circle those numbers just on the top row. Feel free to ask questions.
Okay, and the microphone's working. Yes, feel free to ask questions. So I'll be roaming around here in the back. If any of you have any questions about definitions, what these mean, and obviously George and Dan too. So.
Thirty seconds.
Any questions?
In 10.
Okay, and just one thing I wanted to share out with everybody for this session and every other session. These slides and these sessions, they're being recorded. They will be put out on our website. It's probably going to take a couple of weeks. So, and by all means, take pictures or whatever you need to of in the room today.
And let's do the ding.
Okay. So we'll use that to rotate to each next activity. Okay.
You got mail.
Yeah, right. The next 3 components are housed under align. Once we have assessed what the organization needs to do, we align across stakeholders to start to do it. So first, we need to agree on what our return on investment objectives are and how we're going to achieve that. Within the first year, hopefully by the end of 12 months, we have achieved break even with our innovation program, having costed in the FTEs that we're using to run our innovation program, and then the outcomes that they achieve in helping the other business units unlock value. So, bright idea, we have ROI models that we can walk you through if you want to do follow-ups with us, but ROI is, have we agreed on when we will break even and what innovation activities are on the path toward doing that.
We do have a question back there, Michael, if you can grab that one, Mike.
Sorry, is there an assumption that the ROI model is always based on full-time employees?
Good question. Some folks will have full-time employees. I would say if they're lucky, I know a lot of you are part-time. It's 10% of your time or your free time, your personal time that you're putting toward this.
Yeah, as a clarifier, your ROI modeling can account for the actual employee's time. In our experience, that's a very high complexity element to try to factor for, and there's a lot of unknown factors. So when we're building an ROI model, we're focusing more so on the known factors, yourself, your core team, management teams, subject matter experts, challenge teams, depending on what the activity is. If you do want to factor for the employees, it would be something I would reference as ad hoc at the end of the full scope calculation. The ROI model thinking, if you were to rate yourself a 4 in this case, imagine you have full scope projections 3 to 5 years out. You've been tracking all impact of all historical activities. You know exactly at this moment in time what you're in, how much has gone into the program, what your expected out is. So 4 would be a very, very, very well developed program. So if anybody is a 4 in here, I'd like to talk to you.
Other question?
Just a follow-up. So, yeah, this isn't necessarily about the assessment, but as I think about innovation teams or just the programs that support, I think about there's a portfolio of actual initiatives, right? And when you're thinking about ROI, you do it at an initiative level, and that adds up to a portfolio level. I don't normally think about the overhead of the innovation team that's supporting a portfolio being put into the calculation for an ROI. Because if I was going to scale that initiative, I'm scaling the cost of that initiative into a business that's getting the revenue, and the overhead or the administrative function of the team that helps support that from a process perspective, et cetera, should just be part of overhead that's allocated across however big or small your organization is. So, I mean, how would you react to that? Because I think that was a little bit different.
There's a high variability in terms of every organization's way of how they account for the costs, right? Whether it's in some way recharged to the businesses, the business units, depending on how the organization is structured. You could have a central, one just big fund, and everything is going there. I would say, from the perspective of what we mean when we say ROI model and ROI modeling, it's more so the act of actually doing it versus the nuance of how you would specifically frame it, right? There's a lot of cases where it doesn't exist. And whether it's at the challenge level to those teams at the business unit or recharge or central, that's a structure that you would overlay on the act of doing it, right?
And so I would use the word discipline, just introducing the discipline of ROI modeling. Your method might be a little bit different than my method, but at least we have a discipline and an agreed language on expected outcomes. And in reality, not getting our program canceled in 2 years because we delivered something that was not what someone else was imagining.
Yeah, each of you is going to have a different methodology for how this is calculated and how your CFO or your financial organization expects you to calculate this. To Dan's point, the goal here is to introduce the discipline, and we're thinking more of this at the programmatic level because sometimes it's actually hard at the initiative level to say this initiative is going to have an ROI or not. Some companies will do that, others will not, because doing so blocks the ability to fail, right? If you're looking for an ROI out of a given initiative, you're not allowing for failure. So if you address it first at the programmatic level, according to your organization's methodology, then you can at least decide whether or not you want to do that initiative level ROI as well.
Great question.
Definitely something that can be discussed when we get to the group work.
Cool. Scope and scale is about what type of innovation are we going to do based on the corporate strategy that we're trying to support. Do we want to innovate externally for client facing, internally for process improvement, safety, employee experience, and what horizon of innovation are we going to work on? Incremental improvements to our current product, adjacent, delivering our current product to a different customer, or serving the same customer with a different product, or are we delivering transformational breakthrough innovation? Okay, disruptive, choose your word, right? So incremental, adjacent, or disruptive, and how much effort proportionally do we want to invest in those three horizons? Okay? Finally, stakeholder mapping is who do we need to coordinate to get this done? What is the RACI? Some of you might be familiar with that. Who's responsible, accountable for making this happen? Who can be consulted and who's informed along the way? And then who are we going to make angry? What feathers are we going to ruffle along the way? And how can we mitigate those issues? Okay? Is there going to be a blocker, some person that we need to plan for so that they don't block us? So go ahead and take a minute. I think we've talked through this in a little bit more depth than the first three. So just take a minute and circle those numbers for that middle row. Any other questions as you're doing that? And if we didn't make the introduction, this is Michael O'Toole in the back. He's our VP of Services. So anytime you want to engage Bright Idea in this type of planning, Michael is your man to figure out which team we can connect you with. Okay.
20 seconds.
Everyone
20.
got their...
Yeah, 20 seconds. 20 seconds. And 10 seconds. I think everybody's almost ready.
All right. Now we're getting into action. So assess, we've looked at what the business needs, align, we've agreed on it and gotten the right people, and act, we're starting to put it into action. Now, platform mapping is where we start to plug in how can we do these innovation activities in the Bright Idea Innovation Cloud. What types of activities do we need? Do we need to gather more intelligence from the field and from consumers? Maybe we run an understand forum. Do we have a problem to solve? Maybe we run a solve or an optimize initiative. So we plan our innovation activities according to the Bright Idea Innovation Cloud, design thinking processes, what type of innovation do you need to run, and let's start putting it on a roadmap. Let's start action planning and look at the next 1 to 3 years of those innovation activities. Finally, resource planning, who do we plug in to make that happen? How much time are they going to dedicate? Are they full-time, or is it 10% of their time? And what is the org structure? Do we run a centralized innovation organization? Is it decentralized, where we're enabling the business units to run on their own? Do we have an offline lab that's not responsive to the quarterly business results and can experiment with the crazy ideas in their own time? Your innovation org structure. Okay? So go ahead and score yourself for platform mapping, action planning that you can think of as a roadmap, and resource planning, who's going to do it, and what is their dedication.
15 seconds. All right. Right before we shift, right before we shift to the main event, guys, just I wanted to highlight one really important thing in regards to building these kind of structures, right? If you're thinking about, all right, I don't have this piece or I have that piece and I need to do this. Once we get to the action planning specifically, recognize that every single one of these are interdependent elements, right? There isn't like vision in a silo, strategy in a silo, platform mapping in a silo, and those are just independently going to be built and then okay, it's done. Every single one of these interacts with the other, right? So your resource planning will, of course, interact with your ROI modeling, which will, of course, be based on goals and objectives that are going to be looped into your action plan, that are going to define what you're going to do with what you're going to use from the platform perspective. All of these connect, right? There isn't one that you're just going to do and you're done. So the whole point of this session, and to understand the long-term, the long-term version of this session is you're not going to just build the vision and the whole thing needs to be built in its entirety together, thought through with its interdependencies, and then iterated upon again and again. It's a living document. You're not going to build or you're not going to define your strategy based on your vision and then disregard a strategy shift 9 months down the line, right? You're going to adjust based on how the business is moving, depending on what's going on. All of it is a living document, right? So you said it once. Quick question. Does anybody have 4 on all of these elements? Does anybody rank themselves a 4 on every single one of these? Oh, wow. So we'll talk to you later. That's it. 1. 1 out of, what is this, 20? That's not bad. No, that's a joke. That's not good. That's very bad. So, getting to it then. 2 sides of the puzzle. Everybody up. Your lowest scoring based on where you're going to go in the room. So if your lowest scoring was scope and scale, you go there. If it was strategy, you go there. We'll be monitoring as you guys move. Maximum 5 people per station. Get there before they fill up.
Lee?
Sure.
You can leave your bags as well. The idea is just to get people grouped together and talking on common.
How much time do we have?
Sorry, I'll get out of the way and then. This is your morning exercise routine?
So 5 and 5, right?
After they move. You can if you want to. All of them? All of them. All of the above.
You might be.
1, 2,
and
3,
if you're
4,
alone,
you can still join there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
we're gonna. If
1, 2,
someone's
3,
alone, we're
4.
gonna reconfigure.
Just put it back there. Wait.
Okay, so you want to be with platform mapping?
All
Okay.
alone.
So 2 options.
You're
We
gonna
can
have
work
to-
with you here, or you can float to one other section if you want to work with a team. Your choice. Do it. Awesome.
Okay.
No problem. Yep. Yep.
You can get some special time.
Any questions? Yep.
Which one?
So, vision, mission, strategy, objectives. Okay.
Starting with the risks, guys. So first things first, of the components
yeah,
that you
nobody's
don't
going
have,
over there.
what are the risks? Top 3 risks if you are missing that component. That's where you start, right? And our top of the food chain over here is going
You're
to
good with
report to
action
all of
plans?
us later. All right, we ready to go? This is going to be a timed activity. 5 minutes. Top 3 risks, go. Top 3 risks of not having that component. So the risks of not having a platform mapping, not knowing what you're going to be using in the platform.
That's we're talking about like the tools, the apps that are within.
reasons that people aren't sure that they know ROI.
We're already embedded in the function that's already plugged in. It's right there in the cell organization. So we already exist. It's sometimes what we do. And any ROI we have is based on the final product development. When 2 or 3 years down the road, we can actually show revenue for that product. It has, we're globally, we're so global that a lot of the resources around the world are doing allocation. So it's kind of how we ever quantify it.
ready for action? Oh, that was loud. So, ready to shift to action planning? Some of you may have already shifted to action planning. Hopefully you've all defined the top 3 risks of not having that component. Now, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to fix it?
We're focusing on the next 30 days. So you might be working on
Let's hear
this
it.
for the next 2 quarters.
Problems must be solved.
But what
do
can
we
you do
got?
in the next month about it?
So what's hard?
One of my issues was, I think in our organization, we put too many eggs in one basket and we focused on one innovation.
Okay.
And it may not go forward. I think there's a lot of risk there. And
Which one is this? This is scale, right? Scale? Okay.
They kept it. $70 million. They didn't do anything with it. They never told anybody. They never shared it. They never reported it out. Okay? Right? Now what's happened is someone has now realized, oh, we're not doing this. And now we've got all that. There was this benefit there that just wasn't being. Solve this problem in business, right? You can also do a little bit of a deflection and have people, oh, you do this for this part of the business? Well, why aren't they telling us what the benefit is? And then this sort of action plan, we do this with customers. We just basically say, take this in 30-day chunks. Don't set yourself up to oil the ocean, right? What can I just get done in the next 30 days? So,
So, for example, you could put some kind of base hypothesis down and try and do some rough numbers to quantify it. Just say, but say this is a whack, you know, it's a wild ass guess, but it's the best that there is, and we can refine it as the thing matures.
You got to start somewhere. You don't put something down. You have an update. Then you put something down. And make it grow.
Yeah.
But you have something to discuss. So I'll let you guys kind of talk. You know, I would give yourself each just an action. If you're struggling with this, what am I going to do in the next 30 days? Is it have a conversation? An action could be, I'm going to reach out to Dan or George or Mike or anybody, right, and have a conversation. Happy to talk through with you, like, get to a call and say, talk through some specifics with you. Okay? So you can do that. You know, I'm going to wander around to check in with a couple of the other groups.
So what's worked for us before
Where's my thing? Oh, it's under here.
the thing. All right, guys. How we feeling? Have we progressed? Cold? Got to keep you sharp. All right, so we got a 15-minute mark here. Time for self-reporting or group reporting. Who would like to volunteer? Sharing their risks, identified risks. Oh, there he is. Risk and action plan on your component. Any volunteers? I'm going to pick on the GM guys because I like them. All right, just throw it at them. Boom.
Oh, there's no mic in this thing. What's going on?
We're low budget operations.
Okay.
We're old school.
So one of the risks that we talked about was actually people not joining the team because they don't understand how this fits into their career progression at the company. So that's a real big problem where it's like what we do, I guess at GM and a lot of big companies, there's the accepted path of you do this, then you do this, that's how you move on. And there are all these boxes you have to check, but innovation isn't one of those boxes, and it's not comparable to one of those boxes right now. And so getting the company to either create or helping, to create a different path or potentially showing how the skills and the things that you learn as a part of our team, where they translate to and what they're analogous to in, other career kind of options that we have.
If I can ask a question, so when you say the team, because you guys were, you were mentioning sort of that there's the extended team, sort of like the volunteers and sort of the indirect dotted line variations. So when you say joining the team,
I mean, full-time, yeah.
full time, would you say that there's any such problem or that is experienced with the indirects, sort of the volunteer or like passively involved team members?
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things there. So we do have the indirects who join, and like flex people will join us for 4 to 6 months, and sometimes they don't want to leave. So that brings an interesting kind of tension with their manager and our team. For us though, what hurts is every time someone leaves, like it just sawtooths the organization's capability. Like we're not able to grow because we're constantly retraining people, and then they leave, and then we retrain, and then they leave, and it, we stagnate because of that.
To be fair, you'd imagine that there's sorry? What was that? There's two sides to that coin though, right? There's they're leaving somewhere to go to you, and then they're leaving you to go somewhere. So that part of the organization is probably also experiencing that pain, and then you're also experiencing the pain. So if you were to do resource planning for that specific element and your action plan, you might want to factor for both sides of that equation. That like when someone joins your team, they're probably leaving someone else to ease that pain, maybe vice versa.
Well, I think you're totally right. I think that further justifies the need for more full-time people rather than flex heads to stop pulling on, stop hurting the other sides of the organization. I hadn't even thought about that.
What else? Any other risks?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing, what Shrey mentioned on people coming to the team and leaving the team, so it's pseudo resource planning. Like, if all of us just kind of acknowledge that we're taking risks not being in a core function, and that's okay. It's just the reality of the fact that when you take that divert from the career path, then it's like, okay, what do I do next? And people don't want to take that risk to have you come back to the core. So I think we were talking about maybe learning from. I wasn't talking at this team, but we were talking recently about a podcast called Masters of Scale by Reid Hoffman, and he was talking. They had Marissa Meyer, who's CEO of Yahoo, and she started the associate product manager program at Google, and how they used that program to develop the talent that they wanted. And so we were talking about maybe shifting our model to being a place where we find a gap in the organization and then use a rotational type program to staff us, train them, and then that way there is a clear career path for the talent that we're developing.
Interesting.
So I don't know.
Which
Awesome.
would
Do you have a line into your HR department to solicit them to help you build that out, right? So can you build maybe innovation as a core requirement of certain jobs, right? That you have to your rotation idea,
Sure.
right? Is build this as part of that standard career progression, right? So there are things that are in career progression today. I'll take IT skills, for example, that didn't exist 60 years ago. So they eventually worked their way into into the corporate culture.
That's a great idea.
So if you can engage your HR partners, which I think you said you've got a good relationship with
We do,
yesterday, so
yeah.
to help you build that, right? That's, yeah.
No. Yeah, that's. I mean, when I think about the next 30 days, it's just maybe formalizing some of that.
Right.
Thanks.
Great. Let's jump over to ROI modeling. I think there's some corollaries, if you can toss the ball in this direction, some corollaries between resource planning.
Wakey, wakey.
So going from resource planning to setting expectations on the return for those resources.
So you want the risk first?
Yeah, what's
Talking to risk
a
right now?
particular, read off one particular
Okay.
risk. Yep.
I think one of them that was the most self-evident is if there's no return or if there's not a good way to show return, is that the group could be eliminated, just eliminated or dispersed.
Yep. So what you gonna do about it?
I don't know. I'm gonna ask my team. Well, a lot of it in my case, and I'll use my example because I can speak about this one without thinking too hard about, what we have and haven't done right. We do consumer products, and for us, getting an actual financial return can be 2 to 3 years or more, which is not something that's really workable when you're trying to justify something up front. However, one thing I just thought about as we were talking is we have a pretty good business intelligence team, And if we show immediate impact of market share increase or loss of market reduction, basically we keep platforms in the market, it's a much faster way to get a return on investment than trying to get a financial out 2 or 3 years later.
Yeah.
So we show that innovations are relevant when you actually capture more market share, which, you know, you can show that in our industry much faster than you can the actual return on the investment.
Yeah. I mean, last year I remember, or not, 2 years ago maybe, in a similar workshop like this at Synthesize, someone had asked, like, if you run an innovation initiative that has to do with, you know, boosting some marketing activity, how do you qualify or quantify the ROI on that? And it's like, the truth of the matter is, you're probably not experts at every single thing that you'd have to do, but your entire organization is this little microcosm of experts. Finding the right person to tap into in that case, or the marketing case, or whatever the case may be, have a chat, and probably they'll be able to, you know, guide you towards something that can be used for some sort of qualification, quantification, right? It is not just the financial. We made money, great. That's one piece of the puzzle. There's your soft intangibles. There's, well, I mean, what you just said. So it's ROI. Don't think of ROI as just money. There's a lot of pieces to that puzzle.
And regarding a 3-year lag in market results and showing actually more revenue in the door, ultimately what we want to do is build a pipeline of innovation. And so once we get that pipeline built out, you might have, at the end of the 3 years, new products that you can sell. But then you recognize, oh, there's leading indicators for all those preceding 3 years that in order to get to a new product in the market, we probably need to engage 3,000 people asking the question of what new value can we deliver. And 3 months later, we want 500 ideas from that question. And a month after that, we want to have down selected to 10 winning ideas. And so you can see eventually, after 3 years, one of those 10 ideas is built, implemented, and sold. But now you have this whole pipeline of leading indicators that if you've built this financial model, other people can trust, even though the goal is 3 years out, we see all these leading indicators along the way, and we can trust your pipeline of that happening again and again with several use cases tiered over each other.
Do you guys have a best practice or recommendation when you're doing something on a more intangible, longer term, more open water type innovation type thing?
Yeah.
And you have a 3-year horizon, or even a 2-year horizon. You guys talked about like losing the momentum and not getting funded, right? So how do you get leadership to buy into learning, iteration, evolving, you know, as a result, versus looking at that hard KPI? Did this produce X amount of whatever, you know?
But I think you need to be really careful about what you're doing by way of who is going. So you said that you know, we're doing something that's more open ocean. You know, we're sort of just looking in the distance what we could do, 3-5 year horizon. But there's a concern that it might get shut because it's not creating ROI. If you have that concern, then it means that you should not just be doing that, right? If that's all you're doing and you're concerned about getting shut down, then you already know there's someone or something or some structure in the business that is not going to like that. And either you have the ear of the CEO and you are sitting pretty, no problem, or you need to balance your activities of let's just go this five-year transformational unknown territory, fear, failure, no problem, etc. You need to balance that with some incrementals. You need to start creating ROI. You need to start creating something that's going to quell those concerns, so that you potentially know that, you know, this transformation stuff is gonna meet the mark. Just we need time. You do those to create the runway for that transformational stuff. If you're not concerned at all, then that means okay, just go do the big ticket items only. But if you do have that concern, which you do, then all right, make sure you satisfy those people, or maybe you need to do a better, deeper stakeholder mapping. There's I'm going to reference like 4 out of the elements of the components here.
I just want to add one thing to that as well. Part of the key here is communication, right?
Yep.
So coming out of the gate, if you're a brand new innovation program, if you've developed a plan, it may well be that I cannot show a return for 3 years, right? And you need to clearly communicate that, right? And tell people, right? So that when people come back to you in 12 months, well, what have you done for me lately? Okay, look, I showed you the plan was to show this in 3 years. And to Dan's point, we've had this many pipelines, this many ideas, they're in action. We won't show the results until, right, the 3-year horizon. So constant communication is key, right? You can't sort of hide under a rock with this thing. It's a visible overhead to the business. And I was telling these guys a story. A customer of ours, a tech company that shall remain nameless, recently let go of their innovation team because they weren't seeing the benefit to the business. Okay. Well, little did this company know that the tech team was actually returning about $70 million a year to the business. They just weren't communicating it out. So that company has now started to re-pick up, right? Oh, we need to be doing this. We need to be running these innovation programs, right? And they've let the people go. So, communication is the big thing here. And bad news needs to travel fast. Good news needs to travel fast, right? So, constant. Someone said yesterday, I think it was Brittany, you've got to bring out your inner sales, right? You've got to just constantly communicate, go out, different stakeholders, whether it's HR, CFO, CEO, just set up routine meetings with them to communicate this out.
Awesome. So we have a few minutes to wrap up. I do want to toss the beach ball up here and have you say one thing, because a lot of this conversation has been referring to scales of innovation, right? While we're working on that breakthrough transformative innovation, what's something that we can deliver incrementally now to keep people happy, to show returns now? So can you share with us something you were thinking about on far term versus near term scales? Just one comment before we wrap up. Yep.
Sold. Well, in our case, one of our customers is a pharma network. Sorry, it's a pharma company. So they're very stuck in their core businesses. So, like I was saying, there is no defined partner network to handle disruptive innovations in the future. Like, if an opportunity comes and they don't have the capabilities, they don't know who to call.
Exactly. Awesome. So that links to the challenge of resourcing and finding the right people to share a little bit of their time to work on it. Or what we heard yesterday from Naveen at Clorox, if he said, I don't have the people internally, well, I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to go pay for someone externally. Pay him $300 an hour for 5 hours. That's so much more worthwhile than recruiting someone, building them internally. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks for sharing. We do need to wrap up, but I hope you enjoyed tossing the beach ball around.
Oh, action. Let's take a minute. What's the action plan? Just a minute.
Sure.
We can do it.
Sure.
Got it.
Oh, yeah,
Yep.
the action plan we discussed was based on the goals we have also, because this is linked to the goals and objectives. Try to identify key partners and begin co-innovating with them and start discussion and engaging a little bit more with them. Like trying to see where maybe market trends are going and start just like dating those new partners.
Right. Excellent. I like that. Thank you, George.
You want to round up? We have the final word from our dear colleague.
So just the final word, I guess. So overall, we're planning to assess our business needs and make sure we're all aligned, speaking that same language, that we're not saying innovation, we're not saying disruptive, and seeing a black and blue dress while other people are seeing a white and gold dress, that whatever words we're saying, we all understand what they mean, and that we're aligned on that ROI model for what to expect, every quarter along that long journey. And then ultimately put it into action, commit resources to it. And this is all going to be iterative, something that you will update. This is a living, breathing document. So when something changes in the roadmap, that action plan, you might have to go back and reconfigure that stakeholder map. You're going to ruffle someone else's feathers. So you need to go figure out how you're going to coordinate with them or sidestep them to get things done. Right? So this is all very dynamic. It's all connected. And we update these things constantly for each organization. Great. So thanks for working with us on this. All together, we put the 30-day action plan for what can you kind of do in the next month when you return to your business. In the long term, it's something you'll always be working on.
I just want to add a couple more quick things. Feel free to take a couple of these scorecards. I would actually encourage you to do this same exercise with your teams, right, and have people rate it. You'll start to get that, and your leadership, by the way, and have them realize. And then I'll make the last comment for these guys. First of all, thank you guys for doing this. If you could all go onto the app and rate the session, really would appreciate it. So thanks very much, everyone, for coming.